President Joe Biden recently trolled House Republicans after passing a debt ceiling bill that makes tons and tons of cuts, including the possibility of cutting veterans' benefits. So, now, according to HuffPost, the conservative debt ceiling bill, which passed the House, will not pass the Senate. It's just more of like a declaration of things that they want to do, and maybe a starting point for negotiations. But it would enact massive cuts to discretionary spending programs, which Democrats could include, Warren could include cuts to veterans benefits, as well as many other agencies in the government, like EPA, for example, and food stamps, et cetera, et cetera. So now Republicans accuse them of lying about this. Oh, no, they're not going to cut veterans benefits. Really? Well, here's what Biden tweeted this out. Take a look. A little flow chart. Pretty simple. Did you vote for, a bill that cuts the domestic spending by 22%? And it's kind of difficult to see. But it's a nice little flow chart. Really easy. A little hard to read, but it's pretty easy. Pretty easy. There you go. If you voted no on that bill, then you voted to protect veterans' benefits. It's very simple. It's something that even Marjorie Taylor Greene can figure out. So easy. So easy. If you vote for a bill that says we are going to, or we could cut veterans' benefits by 22%, then it's very clear that they're going to cut benefits by 22% if they ended up having this passing. Now, of course, it's not going to pass, as I mentioned before, but it is really strange how in their dream budgets, they want to cut veterans' benefits. Weird. Now, that said, the bill does not explicitly exempt the Department of Veterans Affairs from federal spending caps, according to the bill itself. So unless it says in there that we are exempting veterans' benefits, then those are on the table. Now, let's get into more details. So basically what the Republican bill does is set limits each year for spending for the next 10 budget years. And so this is regular appropriations, also known as discretionary spending. So that's the money that goes to things like the Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, Department of Justice, the EPA, other agencies, other programs. Now, mandatory spending is Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Now, Republicans are not going to touch that because they would be roasted by everyone. Now, look, I've showed you a video before where Republicans went on the record saying, yeah, we'd absolutely want to cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. We can't wait to do it. And then, of course, later on, they act like that video does not exist. And they're like, well, we never said that. No, you actually literally did. We have receipts. There are videos. But anyway, now that said, at the same time, Republicans and Democrats would never cut defense spending. Now, this is spending that goes to defense contractors like Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, etc. So in order to not cut the defense budget, they would have to make deep cuts in pretty much everything else in the discretionary programs. Understand? So how bad are these cuts? What are we talking? Well, there's a lot of different numbers here and a lot of different think tanks that have put out their own analysis of this. So let's go to one of those. It's the Center for Budget. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. So they found that if defense and veterans programs were protected from the GOP budget cuts, they would have to cut spending on all other programs by 33% next year. So that's a third of all spending on all the other discretionary programs. It gets worse. They would actually have to cut it by 59% by 2033. So that's a lot of cuts in spending if they did actually keep defense spending and protect veterans benefits programs, which again is not a guarantee in this bill. But it gets worse. As I mentioned, both parties, they're not just protecting defense spending. That previous analysis is just protecting the current levels of defense spending. You may have noticed a lot of lefties, progressives have been pointing out that, hey, wait a minute, we keep dumping more and more money into the defense budget, more and more money to the Pentagon. So we're actually increasing the military industrial complex. That actually means that if we continue as is, increasing the spending, increasing the amount of money that we give the Pentagon, we're going to actually have to cut other discretionary programs by even more. According to the Center for American Progress, if defense spending is allowed to continue at its current pace, 5.2% a year, the average rate in the last 6 years, and veterans programs were protected from these cuts, the resulting cuts to everything else would be a total of 94% by 2033. Jesus Christ. Now, the White House also produced their own estimate about how much the GOP would have to cut from all the other programs, which includes cuts to the Department of Veterans Affairs, and still achieve its spending reduction goals. And that's, of course, by next year, they would have to cut 22%. So that's where the 22% comes from. That's the math. So according to the White House, if the 2022 overall pool of discretionary spending was limited to 2022's level and defense spending was held at this year's level, everything else would have to be cut by 22% to stay below the arbitrary cap that Republicans have put on spending. So basically, regardless of how you look at it, Republicans, in order to meet their own spending goals, would have to massively gut the government. And that's it. Almost completely. And now the problem with that is that there are a lot of programs that people rely on. There are a lot of programs that are really popular that people need and people like. And when you go to cut them, well, it turns out you might lose elections. I know, weird, right? Weird. Turns out people like some level of government spending that helps improve their material conditions. Who would have known? Who would have known?
Can't let that happen.
That's what they're saying. Average people. What, you're going to cut something that I need? No. Cut something else. What is there to cut? Oh, there's a lot of things, actually. I'll get to a couple of those ideas. Now, the total that would be cut from veterans' healthcare would be about $2 billion. So that could lead to, again, hundreds of thousands of people not being able to get the kind of veterans' healthcare that they deserve. That would be disastrous. So now, when Republicans, though, say that we're not cutting veterans' benefits, that's not entirely true. They're using weirdo math. Again, they didn't exempt veterans' benefits like they did with Social Security and Medicare. They pointed out in their budget that we're not going to touch this whatsoever. They put those exemptions in, but they did not put an exemption here for veterans' healthcare benefits. And the reason that they didn't make an exemption is because they want it to be on the table, either as a negotiating tactic to try to force Democrats into doing other cuts to other programs or something. Okay. But look, I got to ask, though, who does this budget appeal to? I just mentioned all the different reasons why average people are like, hey, wait, you're going to cut things that I need, that I like? Well, I don't like this at all. Or I don't want to see veterans' benefits get cut for our troops. Okay? They earn those benefits. They deserve those benefits. And if anything, those benefits should be expanded for the stuff that we put them through. But it doesn't, it's not meant to appeal to average people. You have to understand. This is to appeal to corporate donors. This is to appeal to billionaires. The donors, they're the ones that are really interested in reducing spending. So now the reason that they're interested in reducing federal spending is because they want more tax cuts. They want to vastly reduce the power or eliminate agencies like the EPA, for example. So if they reduce the power of the EPA, to, for example, enforce regulations, well, these companies can then make more money being able to pollute. That's it. They also wouldn't have to, spend money on worker safety, environmental safety, and ultimately, this is why they're focused so much on budget cuts. I know the whole BS reason. They're saying, oh, no, we're worried about the debt. We're worried about the deficits. Really? These are the same people who blew up the debts and deficits by giving massive tax cuts to the rich. Again, the Trump tax cuts mostly positively affected or impacted the richest Americans. Their entire platform is cut taxes for rich people and corporations. The so-called corporations that they hate are the very ones that they love to serve, to lick the boots of, in order to get those fat campaign donations. So that's what's going on here. If they, again, cared about revenue, they would raise some taxes on the wealthy. They would make cuts in corporate welfare programs, for example, oil subsidies, billions and billions of dollars a year in fossil fuel subsidies that they don't need to actually, give to these incredibly wealthy, profitable corporations. They could also stop shoveling money into the defense budget. We don't need that much money in our military industrial complex. But of course, they continue to give it, both sides, by the way, both Democrats and Republicans, because they are funded by defense contractors to continue boosting the profits of the military industrial complex. It's old to help themselves while screwing over everyone else by making it so the benefits and stuff that they rely on get gutted. Okay. So there you go. So many Americans have died for useless wars. True. They want to use Americans to fight for their wars to make money, but not give them care afterwards. Also true. Very, very true. Okay. Imagine falling for the trick of believing we should destroy the EPA. Yeah, look, we shouldn't destroy these agencies. We should make them better.